All right, Austin. We are live on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining us today. And it's wonderful to have you today. And I want to ask you, how are you doing? How's your mood?
I'm good. It's nighttime over here, I think a day before you in Bishkek. So just finishing up work for the day and having dinner with my wife.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's morning time here. So let's wait a few seconds, I guess, for our online visitors. So it takes some time. Mm-hmm. Yes, our first viewers join us. Good morning, everybody. Bishkek American Center is welcoming you. Thank you very much for coming to our session, and we are very happy to continue our virtual US state tours. And today we're excited to go to Texas State. And it's my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Austin Cook-Lindsay. So, Austin was a former Fulbright English teaching assistant in Kyrgyzstan from 2011 to 12, and now he's a physical therapist back home. He enjoys hiking, traveling, and going on adventures with his wife Jessica and new puppy Trisel. I think I was
Everything,
correctly.
yeah, you said everything right.
Thank you. So I think I want to also to say to our viewers. So don't forget to send your questions during the live, and you're allowed to type them in the comment section under this video. And after the presentation, Austin will answer them. So I would like to now give a floor to Austin.
Okay, so do I just open my presentation and you can see
Yes.
it?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Does
Yes.
that look
Yes.
good? Okay.
Good.
Oh,
Mhm.
sorry, I don't use this type of thing very often, so. Does that look good?
Yes, yes, it
Okay.
works.
So hi, yeah. So my name is Austin. As she was saying, I lived in Kyrgyzstan in Bishkek for about 1 year after I graduated from university, and I taught English with the Fulbright program, which is through the State Department. And I had a very great experience. I really enjoyed living in Kyrgyzstan. I did a lot of traveling around the country. Went to Isikul a lot of times. Went skiing in the mountains. Went down to Osh. Went to Kazakhstan a few times and visited friends there, and just had a very good time getting to know everyone in Kyrgyzstan, getting to know more about your country. And Kyrgyzstan isn't a country that a lot of Americans know, unfortunately. So I've tried to sort of represent Kyrgyzstan as I've come back to the United States over the last 8 years, and tell my friends and family everything about it and how wonderful it is, and when they should all go visit, especially after COVID is over and we can travel once again, because it really is an amazing country, and I loved living there and kind of getting to know it a little bit better. So I will be presenting today about Texas. It's a state that many people have heard of. It's got kind of a funny shape. It's a big state, so a lot of people know about it, but hopefully I can tell you guys some things that maybe you didn't know. I spent most of my life there, from when I was born to after university when I moved to Kyrgyzstan, and then went back for a few years. I actually live in Oregon now, which is up here, and I believe your last presentation was from someone in Oregon. But my wife and I decided to move to Oregon about 2 years ago, and we work here now as physical therapists. But Texas, just like Kyrgyzstan, will always be a special place to me, and I want to share with you guys a little bit about Texas. So the first place I'm going to talk a little bit about is San Angelo. This is a fairly small city, about 100,000 people, and this is actually my hometown. That's where I was born, where I grew up. And this is kind of where it is on the map. This is actually the county, so this is a little bit more than the city, but this is kind of in general where Texas, San Angelo is. San Angelo is kind of in western Texas, which is sort of a desert part of the state. It doesn't get a lot of rain. You can kind of see that here. There's not a lot of mountains, not a lot of trees, but it is beautiful in its own way. This is a picture of kind of the downtown area. This is actually our biggest building in the city right here. It's an old hotel from maybe the 1940s or 1950s, and I think it's about 10 stories tall. So Bishkek has several buildings bigger than this, I believe. San Angelo doesn't really have a lot of big buildings. It's not a big city like Bishkek or like some other cities. This picture is of one of the most famous landmarks in San Angelo. This is called Fort Concho. This was a fort in the 1800s as people were kind of settling the state when there weren't very many people there that the soldiers lived in, and it's still preserved to this day. You can go, you can tour it. It's now just a tourist destination. Nobody's working there. There's no soldiers or anything like that, but it's a tourist destination. They have a very nice event there called Christmas at Fort Concho. So for Christmas coming up, they have a lot of lights decorating these buildings, a lot of food, a lot of festivities. You can go and shop and do a lot of fun things. This is a picture of kind of the downtown area. There's a nice river that flows through the town. You can go take a walk with your friends, go play with your dog. And then these are just some pictures of some of the animals you might find in the area. If anyone's ever seen these guys right here, these are bison. They used to be a very common animal in the United States, millions of them running all around the plains. They were hunted about 100 years ago or so as people were settling the country. Now there's not many at all, but in San Angelo, they actually have a program to try to breed these and kind of reintroduce them to the area and take care of them. And then sheep are actually very important to the area historically. A big business in the area in the past and still now was raising sheep, cutting their hair to use for clothing and things like that. So that's my hometown. If you ever get a chance to visit West Texas, it's definitely a good spot to visit, and I recommend it a lot. The next town I'll talk a little bit about is Waco, Texas. This is where I went to college. So from the ages of 18 to 22, right before I moved to Kyrgyzstan and taught English, I was here going to university. It's a university, when I was there, I think it was about 15,000 students. Now it's about 20,000 students. It's grown a little bit, so compared to universities in Bishkek, you guys will have to tell me. I think that's quite big, but maybe you've got some universities bigger than that, I don't know. In Texas, this is a pretty big college, but we actually have larger universities as well. My wife went to a university in Texas called Texas A&M University, if anyone's heard of that. I think that's about 60,000 or 70,000 students, so that is very big. Here on the map is kind of where you would find Waco. Once again, this is the county, so it's kind of just in this general area. If anyone's ever heard of Dr. Pepper, delicious soda, quite famous, and I remember buying it actually one time at a grocery store in Bishkek, but it was very expensive because it was overpriced. But I had to buy it because I missed it from home so much. And if you ever see it and you have a little bit of extra money, maybe you can try it. I like it a lot. You've probably heard about universities in the United States, college football, what you probably call American football if you're studying English, is a very popular big sport. Here is the stadium for my university, Baylor. I think about 40,000 people can go to one game. Right now, they are still having games, even with the COVID virus, but they are very limiting the amount of people that can come in. Some universities completely canceled college football for the year. Others are having it. It kind of just depends. And then this picture here is in Waco. You may have heard of a show. A lot of people here know it. It's called Fixer Upper. It's a very famous show. These two people, a husband and wife, they go into homes, buy them, kind of run down, fix them up and sell them. And it's actually kind of increased the tourism and everything in the city quite a bit. So this is a picture of their sort of headquarters where they have shops and restaurants and kind of do a lot of their work. The next city in Texas I'm going to talk a little bit about is actually named the same as me, Austin. So this is the state capital. It's a very big city, and it's grown a lot over the years. I think about 10, 15 years ago, only about 500,000 people lived there. So it was actually smaller than Bishkek. And now I think over 1 million people are in this city. So I think, I don't know, I haven't looked at the number in Bishkek lately, but I think that's a little bigger than you guys are now. And now it's a very big city. A lot of technology companies have moved in. A lot of them have moved from California, like Silicon Valley, because it's more affordable to go here, and they've still got a lot of the same benefits. This is kind of where you would find Austin. This is the county. This is a picture of the state capitol. So this is where the Texas state government, meets to discuss laws, pass laws, and kind of do their business. And it's actually one of the biggest state capitals in the United States. I think it's maybe only second to the United States Capitol. Don't quote me on that. I could be making that up. But this is right downtown. You can see it. You can take pictures outside and kind of walk around. And I've done the Austin half marathon, I think 3 or 4 times. That's a 13-mile race. So I think that's about, 23 kilometers or something like that. And it finishes, the end of the race is right by this. So once you see that in the distance, you're almost done with the race and you're pretty tired and ready to be done. So that's a good thing. Here's a picture of downtown Austin. As you can see, the buildings are quite a bit bigger than you would find in San Angelo, the first picture I showed you, or even in Bishkek. There's a lot of really tall buildings here. And here's a picture of the football team for the University of Texas, which is a very big university. And as you can probably tell from this picture, compared to the picture from my university where I went, Baylor, this is a lot bigger. I think about 100,000 fans can fit into this stadium to watch one football game. So it can get a little bit crazy. And this is a picture of, it's called Oasis, and it's over a lake up on a kind of a mountain. And this is actually a very special place to me, because my wife and I got married here in Austin, and that was a very nice place to have a wedding with a very nice view, and we had a lot of fun with that. So next I thought I would talk a little bit about professional sports in Texas. I remember, I think it was my second or third day in living in Kyrgyzstan, and I was still kind of tired from traveling there and, a little bit jet lagged. And somebody invited me to go to a sporting event on horseback involving the dead goat, throwing the dead goat around. I don't remember what it was called. So, that showed me a little bit about Kyrgyz sports and some of the things that happen over there. But these are the professional sports teams in Texas. Dallas Stars, that's a hockey team. We only have one of those, and I've never been particularly interested in that. But if you like hockey, that's something you can look into. American football, Dallas Cowboys, a lot of people have heard of them. They're quite famous. Baseball, Houston Astros and Texas Rangers. This is the women's professional basketball team called the Dallas Wings. And then there are 3 men's professional basketball teams. The Houston Rockets, so they're in Houston, the San Antonio Spurs, and then the Dallas Mavericks. And the Dallas Mavericks have always been my favorite team for many years. So I cheer for them when I watch those sports. Here's a little bit about food in Texas. So Texas is sort of a multicultural state. We've got a very large influence from Mexico and from the Hispanic culture. So you find a lot of Mexican food in Texas. Spanish is very commonly spoken in Texas in addition to English. And here's a picture of something called Tex-Mex. So that's Mexican food that is sort of combined and has evolved into its own thing along with a Texas influence. Barbecue is very popular in Texas. You can find it a lot of different styles, but if you go to like a very good place, they'll have large pits that have wood burning all day, and they're making their meat, and it cooks for 8-10 hours, and it's kind of just very tender and delicious. This is a very famous fast food chain in Texas. It's called Whataburger. A lot of people really like this. I've never loved it, but it is okay if you need some food quickly. And a lot of people like to go to this at 2 or 3 in the morning after a night out at the bars or clubs. Tacos are very big. And then here is a beer that's actually made in Texas exclusively called Shiner, and you can find this all over the place. Just some famous people from Texas. I won't say anything about that. But some people you probably recognize, and I didn't even know all these people were from Texas. I knew Matthew McConaughey was, if you know who he was, because he kind of makes a big deal about being from Texas and is always going to the football games at the University of Texas. And I didn't know this guy, Woody Harrelson, was from there, and I didn't know Nick Jonas was from there, but apparently he is. And I think that's about all I have. So I hope I taught you a couple new things about Texas. And if you guys have any questions or want to chat about anything, that would be my pleasure.
Thank you very much, Austin, for the wonderful presentation. It was really interesting. And I loved when you make some comparisons with Kyrgyzstan. It was really nice.
Like I was saying, I miss Kyrgyzstan a lot. And I was enjoying reminiscing the other day about Kyrgyzstan, and I still talk about it a lot. So,
how many regions did you visit in Kyrgyzstan? Have you been in all regions?
I don't think I went everywhere. So my friend that I lived with, that was also an English Fulbright teacher, he and I bought a car together. So we split it 50-50 and bought a car. So almost every weekend we would go drive somewhere in Kyrgyzstan. Our car broke down a few times. We ran out of petroleum a few times, but we had a lot of good adventures. And I think the main place I would go would be like the northern part of Isykyul. I went there a lot. I went to Karakol a few times, and Jalalabad, Osh. It's been 8 years, so I don't remember everywhere I went, but...
No, it's great. Thank you for sharing this, Austin. We started to receive questions, and the first question for you: what's the word Texas mean?
I don't know. So one kind of interesting thing about Texas is it was actually its own country about 180 years ago before it became part of the United States. So it was its own country for about 5 years, maybe. I don't know exactly. And then it joined the United States in 1846. But I don't know actually what Texas means. So,
Does Texas State has a nickname?
the university,
No, I mean state. Texas State.
the Lone Star State. Maybe you've heard that. That's one thing people call it. And that, if you look on the flag on that first slide, it's got one star. So that is one thing that people call it.
Thank you, Austin. The next question is really interesting. Texas State is known as Tornado State. How many do they average per year?
I feel like I'm being quizzed on a quiz show. I don't know how many tornadoes we have. I do remember a few times as a kid, you do get tornadoes, and they make you, in school, you have to have a drill for tornadoes where they pretend there's a tornado coming. They say there's a tornado, but there's not really a tornado. And you have to get under your desk and kind of hide and act like you would act if a tornado were to come. And we did have some in my city when I was growing up, and you would go in the closet and kind of hide away from the windows. Yeah. There's a siren. Yeah. So there's a siren on the first day of every month. The siren goes off to test it. And then the siren is, if there's a tornado, it alerts you. But now everybody has Twitter and Facebook. So I think most people would just see the tornado on Twitter or Facebook before the siren.
Thank you, Austin. The next question: what is your favorite place in Texas State?
So, I was in college in Waco, and those are very fun years of your life. You meet a lot of friends and have a lot of good experiences. So I enjoyed being there, and there was a lot of fun things to do there. And then another nice thing about it was it's kind of in the middle of, it's not a huge city, but it's very close to like Dallas and Austin. You can get there in about an hour. So it was a very good location to go do other things, go to events. So I enjoyed being there.
Great. Thank you, Austin. The next question. Is it expensive to live in Texas state?
It depends. Like everywhere, it depends on where you go. Like if a city is going to be more expensive, just like living in Bishkek is going to be a lot more expensive than living in somewhere else in Kyrgyzstan. So a home price, for example, is actually a lot less on average than Oregon, where I am now, where your last presentation was from. An apartment for a month would be maybe, if not in a city, maybe $700 or $800 a month US. So I don't know what the SOM is now, but I don't know the conversion. And when I was there, it was $1 was 45. What is it now?
Oh, it's 84.
Oh man, so
Yes,
it's worse now.
doubled.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Austin. Um, the next question. Thank you very much for the presentation, Austin. I was waiting to listen about cowboy culture. So please tell us about cowboys.
So
Interesting.
that's one thing that a lot of people know about Texas, like the name of the football team, the Dallas Cowboys, and that definitely has been part of our history. And a lot of people are still into sort of the Western thing. There are still ranches with cows and people riding horses, and then maybe you've heard of rodeos, which are a competition where there's a lot of different types of competition. Some of them you're on a horse and you have to have a rope and throw it and get it on a cow. Some of them you get on a bull, a male cow, and it tries to buck you off and you try to hold on as long as you can. So these aren't things that I've ever done personally. But they are there. They are part of the culture. Maybe you've seen cowboy hats, the big hats you wear with the big brim, boots.
Yes. Thank you, Austin. Uh, One more question. How long have you been in Kyrgyzstan?
Yeah, so I was there for almost a year. I think it was August until June of the next year. So it was like 10 months. And that since I left, I haven't been back. That was 2012. But one day I would like to come back. The closest I've been was 2 years ago. I was in Georgia with my wife. So we were kind of close, but still far away.
Uh, does Texas state have 4 seasons?
Yes. So Texas is kind of hot. It's known as like a hot place. And the summer is very, very hot, too hot, I think. Слишком жарко. And the winter it does get cold, but it's not too cold. We don't get much snow. Maybe it snows one day a year. Kyrgyzstan is much colder. And so it does have 4 seasons, I would say, but not as much as some places.
I see. Thank you very much, Austin. The next question. How other people call people from Texas state?
What was that?
How people call people from the Texas state?
Oh, so you would say they're a Texan.
Texan. In previous sessions, always like we added to the state name like Nian, like
Yeah.
Washingtonian.
It kind of sounds better to just say Texan, right? Than Oregonian or Washingtonian. Yeah.
Yes, it's interesting. Thank you, Austin. Are there any famous museums, parks, theaters in Texas state?
Not as famous as like New York City has famous museums and parks. Not that famous, and I didn't grow up in a city, so I don't know. But there are certainly museums. Like if you go to a big city, there's going to be some good art museums, science museums, and things like that. But none that are probably are very famous? Can you think of any? Oh, if are there any famous museums or parks? Yeah, Whit Museum, isn't that one in Dallas or Houston? Yeah, nothing super famous. One park that is in Waco that I talked about that I like and my wife likes is called Cameron Park, and it's a
Mhm.
big park with a lot of trails. You can go hike, mountain bike. There's a river by it, so that was always very nice, but it's not very famous. Big Bend is a kind of a famous one. It's a
Mhm.
huge, thousands and thousands, maybe millions of acres. I don't know, but you can go camp there, hike, and it's just very big, and it's close. It's on the border with Mexico, I think.
Mm. Mm. It's interesting. Perfect. Thank you very much, Austin. I think it was our last question. And thank you to you and to Jessica for helping us.
Hmm.
Thank you very much. It was really great to have you today, and we learned so many things about Texas State. And it's time to say goodbye to our friends. And thank you very much, Austin, once again. And
All right.
have a great evening. It's already evening in Oregon. So bye bye, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank
Have a
thank
great
you for having
evening.
me, and hopefully I get to come and see everyone in Kyrgyzstan one day.
Yes, we will wait you and Jessica. So
Bye
bye
bye.
bye.